Good morning, everyone. Today we've got the DFS NASCAR Raceday show, O'Reilly Auto Parts. I see I spelled it wrong. I apologize for that error. I'm actually going to fix that right now. You know what? It bothers me. I won't be able to sit here the whole entire show. I might even have it fixed before too many people even see it. If you didn't notice it, great. I'll never forget, though. Always something. Anyways, happy Sunday. Fortunately, I'm just going to wait for a few more people before I get into any analysis or anything like that in terms of the race. Like I said, we got the O'Reilly Auto Parts 500 this Sunday at Texas Motor Speedway. We had the truck race last night as well as the Xfinity race yesterday. Kyle Busch ended up winning both of those, but was disqualified from the Xfinity race. Ride height on the left rear, I believe it was. I read. I kind of looked at some interviews and stuff like that after, and it was kind of seems odd. Seems like there's a lot of inspection that goes on to these after the race, but I am also a huge Kyle Busch fan, so I know a lot of people are happy that he got disqualified. Don't like seeing him in Xfinity. Me personally, even as a Kyle Busch fan, don't like playing DFS Xfinity and trucks when he's in there. He was 17,000. On those races. It makes construction, you pretty much, if you fade him and he leads laps and wins, you're going to lose. And if you play him and he doesn't lead laps, doesn't win, you're going to lose. So it's risky that way. But so if you went, the other thing with DraftKings yesterday was after he was disqualified, DraftKings had already finalized their contests. So that caused a little bit of an uproar. I mean, we've seen this in the past. The reason they really started doing that was just simply because sometimes we weren't getting these, final inspections to finalize the race until like Wednesday. Sometimes a lot of weeks it was Wednesday before we knew. They changed the inspection process this year to do a post-race inspection, but DraftKings still doesn't want to wait around an hour or two, which NASCAR kind of says is their max for that. So, I mean, the other way to look at it is Kyle Busch has nothing to do with it. People are all over him on Twitter. He doesn't adjust the car. He doesn't make the adjustments, that sort of stuff. Like he had talked about them taking a round out of the right side, I believe he said, and it was the left side that was low. They made that adjustment during the race. Either way, he won both races. I didn't get to watch yesterday. I was actually busy building a deck that my wife has been waiting for I think it's been 2 straight summers now since me and my buddy tore down the old shitty deck and decided to build a new one. Just like to procrastinate a little bit, as you can tell. But huge shout out to her for helping yesterday, and my mom and dad also made their way down, helped out as well. It was an awesome day. It rained a little bit in the morning, but it got nice out in the afternoon. We got that sucker built, had a nice barbecue on it after, so ready to get back. I missed both races, missed a whole bunch yesterday, just doing some manual labor, so I'm back in front of the computer today and ready to talk some NASCAR for the O'Reilly Auto Parts 500. Thanks to you that are just joining in here, much appreciated. Yeah, I hope he doesn't drive his lowrider today. I agree, Gary. 100% there. So a couple things I'm going to do here with the show is I'm going to flip over to a screen share. I just want to go over the sheet here a little bit, and I believe I've got my mic hooked up to this so that you will be able to see and hear me and see my sheet this time. I know we've had some issues with that in the past, but, I'm learning. I'm not your production guy. I'm your NASCAR guy. So as I learn this more, I'm going to be adding more and more stuff to these shows. So stay tuned. Sip and steer. That's hilarious. We're Texas Motor Speedway. It's a 1.5 mile quad oval intermediate, 20 degrees of banking in turns 1 and 2. We've got 24 degrees in turns 3 and 4, 334 laps in the race, 105 laps each of the first 2 stages, 124 in the final. That's the big thing they did this year as well. If you haven't really been paying attention a whole bunch, is they want to get stage 1 and 2 pretty much the same and not split them into thirds necessarily, but pretty close. You see the 1 and 2 are going to be the same almost at every single track, I believe, and then the third one's just a little bit longer. So that is the track. On the main cheat sheet here, I know you're not going to be able to see all the tabs, just simply because of the way it's set up on to me to do the stream and stuff. You're not going to be able to see the very bottom of the very far right, but I'm just going to kind of go through this. There's some people that are new to Patreon, RotoPros, and DFSR. That's the three places that I provide my sheets: DFSR.com, rotopros.com, and then patreon.com/Jagerbombs. So I just wanted to go over the sheet. You can go to my YouTube channel here, and I believe it's the third category down on the channel. You can find tutorial videos. I do that for, I think I've got like 5 different sports up. Much more to come. This week we've got MLB coming back. NBA's within 2 weeks of coming back. NHL's within 2 weeks of coming back. Things are going to get crazy. Going to have more videos just kind of going over my videos. I have added a ton of features, a ton of research tools to a lot of these sheets. So I just want to keep updating the tutorial videos to keep everyone, up to date of what's going on, how I use the sheet. So the first thing you see on the NASCAR sheet, obviously, the overall ranking. We'll talk about that in a bit. We've got the car number, manufacturer, and driver with DraftKings and FanDuel salary. If you want to see this track, we're not really looking for, stacking teammates, but one thing that has really been that we've been paying attention to is, some manufacturers are a little bit faster than others, and when one is going, the others are. For instance, Kevin Harvick's been red hot. Cole Custer, or Eric Almirola, has been red hot as well. He led a ton of laps, finished 4th last week. He started on the pole. He led some laps there. I believe that was Pocono 1. So we'll talk about Eric Almirola in the 10, and then we got 41. We got a Cole Custer. He came through with that surprise, awesome win last week. So that team, when one team's strong, usually that can carry over throughout the team. And if you want to see that information, down on the bottom, on the far right, the tabs at the bottom of the sheet, you're going to see entry list. And it's going to show the same information in these tabs, but also I didn't want to fit it on this main sheet. Just shows the team that they're with as well. So not only if you want to see what manufacturer they're driving with, but who are teammates, like teammates. If anyone is new to NASCAR, you can check that out on the entry list. This is going to be very important when we get into Daytona and Talladega because there is a lot of teamwork, especially, manufacturer. But again, we'll talk about this more, teammates as well when it comes to drafting and stuff on those tracks. So it's going to be a little more important. But that's one tab. The next one over is the track history detailed tab. So just looking at the last 10 races at each track. This I like to use. Again, you're not going to be able to see this at the bottom of the sheet, but there is a green section starting at row 47, showing you correlation from start to finish position, just kind of how important it's going to be to start up front at a certain track. Eventually, I'm going to have a database just kind of comparing all the tracks so we can look at that. And then below that, I've got listings of how many drivers led 20, 50, 75, and 100 plus laps. And then quality passes, total quality passes within the race, just to kind of see what the passing was like compared to other races, other tracks, stuff like that. So this race last year, the second race in the playoffs was .588. So when we're talking correlation, we're looking at +1 to -1. -1 being like total negative correlation, no correlation at all. +1 being like the most correlation there can be. So anything over like 0.5, getting to that 0.5 to 1, we don't rarely see things get up in 1. Bristol is one that we get up there, 0.7, something like that. But anything over 0.5 in terms of like an intermediate track tells me that starting position can be very important. Now this year, as we've seen, is a lot different because 1, there's no practice. 2, qualifying is a random draw, although they do try and get it's the top 12 cars and owner points. They do a random draw for 1 to 12 spot, and then 13 to 24, and then 25 back to I think 35th. They do all the charter teams that way, or 34 charter teams I believe there is, and then the rest is just by owner points after that. So that kind of changes things when we start looking at this data. But once we start getting back more into practice and stuff, this data is going to be huge. So just one to remind everyone that is there on the track history in brackets there. It's just detailed. That's the tab at the bottom. Then we've got the fantasy matrix. This has been huge in terms of lineup building and kind of comparing, drivers. One driver who we're maybe looking at, let's just go and look at Eric Almirola versus William Byron, for instance. One driver we're looking at for dominator points. The other one we're looking at for place differential points. When we do this, this can be a lot easier using the fantasy matrix just simply because we can go look. Normally what I've been noticing as a trend, we're looking for about 5x value is kind of like a you're going to cash pretty easily in cash games if you're playing 50-50s and double ups. 5X is going to get you most weeks a min cash in GPP as well, especially single entry. So I've been looking at 5X. So we're kind of looking for 40 points from these guys. Almirola has showed us in the past, I believe, like I said, it was Pocono 1. He started on the pole. He was able to stay out front and lead 60 laps. So that's kind of where I put him at today. I think he can get out. He showed last week at Kentucky, I believe he led 128, a race high 128 laps. That he can lead laps. He can be a dominator. Those Fords, especially the Stewart-Haas cars, have looked fast. So I've got him at 60 laps, or 60 laps led. So if we're looking for that 5X, and this calculation in this fantasy matrix is looking at place differential at each. These are all the finishing positions at the top that a driver can finish during the race, and then below that is representative of how many DK points they would get. And then also I add in my projected laps led. So if you make a copy of the sheet, you can erase all my projections here. 334 laps in the race, like I said, so I like to make sure that totals 334, and that's down in the bottom right hand corner. You can see that, or you can just, you could also make a column up top just to kind of give you that addition. So yeah, back to comparing these two. Almirola would need a 10th place finish at 60 laps led to hit that 5X. William Byron, with no laps led, would need an 11th. So you're kind of looking for the same finish from both. Almirola does need those dominator points, though. So if you don't think he's going to lead 60 laps, let's just say you think he leads maybe the first 20 laps, that's when the competition caution is today. So to get that 40 points in that 5X floor, he needs a top 5 finish. And for him to really have any upside at all, like he's only going to give you like a 6X tops at 20 laps. That if he doesn't lead any laps, his upside's kind of cap. So if you think possibly Blaney gets out front early or Kyle Busch, I doubt it the way he's been running lately. But even Kurt Busch get out front. If you think they're going to lead laps over Almirola, take him out. As you see, he pretty much is going to need the win to hit his value. So then Byron becomes the easy play in that instance. So that is how I use the fantasy matrix and comparing two drivers in kind of the same price range. It's kind of how I decide my core as well. I don't just look at track history, current form, track type history. I then go and look at, okay, this guy's my favorite, and this guy's, two guys are very close in the same price range. That's how I compare them. So that's how I use the fantasy matrix. And if you ever have questions, definitely hit me up. Roto Pros, we have a Slack chat. DFSR, we have it's an internal site chat, so hit me up there as well. Or for Patreon, you can hit me up in a DM. You can hit me up in the YouTube video here, or I have a Slack chat for my Patreon as well. So lots of places to get a hold of me. Twitter as well, at Jaeger_bombs9. I wish we had practices. I love stats. I love data. So the more data I can get into a model, the better and the more comfortable I feel. This is why I love baseball so much, because there's like 1,043 stats that I can import into a sheet, and I can kind of pick out and do correlations and find out what's more important, and versus lefties and splits and home and road and knuckleball and who's better versus what pitches and that kind of stuff. More information, the better for me. So I love practice. I love putting the practice data in there, looking at last 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 lap averages, not just one lap data and stuff like that. So I feel more comfortable putting in lineups. So what I've really done because of that, because of the no practice, I started out doing my normal 20 max like I did before the whole COVID thing. And I was just having a lot of shit luck. My cores weren't hitting. I was missing on my cores. Even if I drop my cores, like usually I'll get 4 drivers, put them in a core, and I'll build like 5 to 10 lineups around them. Well, if one of those drivers, just 1 or 2 of those drivers every single week just kept crashing. So the GPP strategy that way was kind of going away. So I've got into a little bit of cash games, believe it or not. I don't usually play a lot, but I've been trying a few just to try and change things up a little bit. And then on top of that cash, I'm also playing 3 max entries and some single entry rather than the 20 max. One, just a time thing, just because I do so many sheets and so many different sports. I don't really have the construction time. Like once I'm done this video, I'm going to do my 3 max, and then I'm going to be getting into League of Legends sheets for the day, looking at soccer sheets, looking at prep and PGA for next week. So it's just more of a time thing. But the practice definitely has a lot to do with it because, like I said, I'm a data nerd, like crunching those numbers. So when that comes back, I'm going to be real, real happy. Don't know when that's going to be, unfortunately. So that's kind of where we're at. But I've put a lot more on current form lately, and something I changed on the sheet actually this week. I'm going to go to the main tab here. So the first thing that you're going to see is the track history grid. So that's the last 10 races, and this is just all finishing positions. This stuff here is all just finishing position, and then we scroll over to the right, and we've got some average stuff. So we've got the average finish the last 2, 6, and 10 races, laps led last 2, 6, and 10, DK and FanDuel averages last 2, 6, and 10 races as well. That is in the model. And then we got career track history if you want to look at that. I don't factor that into my models because so much has changed, since Jimmy Johnson was a rookie, since Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex, a lot of these older guys. So much has changed in terms of the car, the tracks, so I just don't find that relevant in my model. Something I do find relevant, and I changed this week, track type history used to go back to the start of last year. Because we've got a good sample size, we've also got a weird year with the no practices, with the COVID stuff. The track type history is the 7 races on 1.5 mile tracks since the return of racing. Darlington 1 was the first race. So there's 2 at Darlington, 2 at Charlotte, Atlanta, Kentucky, Homestead. Are the tracks we've got in there. So I've got data for that, so we can really start comparing, 1.5 mile track type history just this season. I love the sample size. 7 races is awesome. Then we've got current form. We slide over and look at that. Current form is the 13 races total since the return of racing. Then beside that, I can't scroll over enough with the sheet right now. I'm actually going to fix that here real quick as well. So season form, and then beside the season form is where the practice stuff usually is, but right now we've just got qualifying. The qualifying inverse is just if you want to look at a like a very place differential heavy lineup, I guess you could say, or a model. If you're making a copy and you have editability once you make that copy and you want to adjust this model, which I have a lot of people that do that, you can go and adjust these numbers up top here. Right now I've got 30 on form, 30 on track history, 10% on last 6 average, and 30% on last 30 average at this track. If you want to look at a very place differential heavy lineup, you could definitely take out, let's just drop the we'll take the last 6 out of there, we'll go 20, that leaves us 40. So if you want to go with a very place differential heavy, you could go and put 40 on this qualifying inverse, because it's just inversing the actual qualifying order. So the rank for Almirola would be 40 because he starts on the pole. He obviously dead last in place differential upside, which is 0. So that's kind of how I have that. Christopher Bell, this would boost him. He moves up. One more thing I have to do here, of course, just to show you, I just want to make sure that you understand how changing this model is going to work. And I changed this model. The reason I do this, which I just did, was it's just capturing which columns are going to be in the model. So yeah, as we can see, Christopher Bell before that was 25th. We go place differential heavy with 40% on that qualifying inverse. He jumps to 8th in the model. So that's just kind of how that works. I'm not putting that much because passing is, not that. It is difficult. So what I want to do is put a little bit on qualifying. Let's say 15 there. I do think Texas, we want 30% track type, like I said, and then 25 on current form. You can adjust that however you want, and just kind of play around with it. I usually build a few models and just see where drivers kind of go up and down in the model. Ones that stay consistently inside the top 10 when I start changing things around, those are going to be drivers that really stand out to me as core plays as well. So that's just how I use the sheet. So like I said, anything under this orange section here, those are ranking all the stats that we talked about here: season form, current form, track type history, career track history, last 10, that sort of stuff. So that's what the model is over on the right in the orange. So now let's get into some picks. I'm going to look at these questions here that I've missed from Gary. Predictions on what lap Ricky Stenhouse is going to wreck out. I'm going to go 112. Let's go 112. I think that is that's just kind of the start. No, that's the start of stage 2. 105 is the end of stage 1. I'm going to say 180. Lap 180, kind of in the middle of that 3/4 of the way into the end of stage 2. So we'll look at that. Getting into some picks here today. Obviously, Kevin Harvick stands out. He's going to be, probably my top guy in the model. Wife loves this again, that Kyle Busch is struggling. Price goes down. Ownership keeps going down with him as well, while her favorite driver, Kevin Harvick, just keeps winning. So, Kevin Harvick, stats, has won 3 of the last 5 races here at Texas. He's finished top 10 in 11 straight. I only got the last 10 here, but he does have top 10s in 11 straight. 2.8 average finish over the last 6 races at this track is just ridiculous. He's got all the Dominator points here as well. I think he has led... You know what? I am going to... More of being not prepared here. I actually sat up till about 12:30 at night last night. Made some notes on my core drivers and did not load that. Yeah, so he's the most expensive on the slate, but like I said, for a reason. Has led 75 plus laps in 5 of the last 6 races here, and that's 100 plus twice in that time. His form is also hot. He's got 4 straight top 5s, including 2 wins, and has 4 wins since the return of racing. 2 of those have come in 1.5 mile tracks, and he has the second best average finish in 2027.3, and the most laps led, 394 on that. That's that track type history that I was talking about earlier. So that's going to be number 1 for me. And when it comes to my core, I really tried to narrow, because I said I'm going down to like some 3 maxes, maybe 2 3 max builds and some single entries kind of things, the way I'm looking at. Very limited lineups. As you can see, I've kept my core on the main sheet, not on here. I didn't highlight my picks on here. But on the members sheet, you will see that maybe there's a few drivers. I know I had some questions in chat earlier today. Why are you not on Denny Hamlin? Why are you not on Chase Elliott? It's not that I'm not on them. It's because I'm only doing a select amount of lineups. If I wasn't on a driver, or I was fading for a specific reason, I would highlight them red on the sheet. But being, green are going to be my core drivers, and, if you're going to amplify and do 20 max or 50 or 100 or 150, the guys in green would be about 40 to 60% exposure for me. The guys in blue would be about 20 to 40% exposure. And then the value plays, it really differs. If I really, really like a value play, I will put him in green. If not, if he's in yellow, we're probably looking at that same 20 to 40%, depending on how low we go down that list. If we get down into the 4 and the 5K range on DraftKings, or the 3 and 4K range on FanDuel, probably looking at like 10 to 20%. If I'm doing a 20 max and dipping into that, superstars and scrubs, the scrubs I really only want 20% max. So like 4 lineups out of 20. So what I'll do in that instance, if you're multi-entering that way, I just want to talk a little bit more strategy than just drivers. I'll answer your questions on any driver you want, but I just kind of want to explain my strategy a little bit that I use when multi-entering. So when I do 20 max, and I do this more, like I said, when there's practice, is I'll take a core of 3 or 4 drivers and I'll build 5 to 10 lineups around them. Now, what I don't want to do is get those value guys who have a lot of variance. They're in the 3, 4, 5, 6K range for a reason. They're not the most consistent drivers, either at that track. They're not the most consistent overall. They're not in the same equipment, but some of them do have upside. I don't want to be overexposed to those value plays. It's very important, because if you have a core of 3 or 4 drivers and you somehow get in those 5 to 10 lineups that you build with that core goes off, but now you've got, of those, say, 10 lineups, of that core 4 that finished first, second, third, and fourth, 2 of them got Dominator points, 2 of them were place differential kings. Now you've got the other 2 drivers in your lineup, and if you fit those values in there, like 60 to 80% of those lineups, so in 6 to 8 of those lineups, the variance is too high. One of those drivers crashes, maybe finishes outside where you kind of needed him to, and looking at the matrix, he only gets 3x return, 2x return, while you could have made pivots to another value play in those lineups. Maybe run JJ Yeley, and I'm not using JJ Yeley today, I'm just using this as an example. JJ Yeley in 2 of those 10, and then in the same price range there, we got Timmy Hill, Reed Sorensen, Brendan Poole. Maybe take 3 or 4 of those value plays and mix them in equally amongst your core 3 or 4 drivers, so that you spread that out, because most of the time your core 4 is going to leave you, depending if there's a guy in that 7K range or not that you really, really, really like this week. But if your core 4 kind of consists of a very high salary threshold and it kind of leaves you in that 7,000, 2 guys in that 7,000 and below, I definitely suggest spreading out your value plays and not going all in, or even like 50%. I don't even like going 50%. It's more 20 to 30% kind of thing. Steno's prop bets. I can't even talk this morning. Missed out on Cole Custer. I didn't expect him to win the race. I expected some, fairly good results. He was one of my value plays last week. But seeing that move at the end, like Truex and Harvick had their little issues there. Harvick kind of went up into Truex. Seeing Custer go 4 wide and just bounce around them like that, you don't see that from some of the top guys in the series, let alone a rookie. So that was just awesome to watch. Didn't help me in DFS whatsoever. One lineup, I guess, but for the most part, he was one of my value plays that I was a little bit not underweight, but one of my lower exposure guys in terms of that. So it kind of sucked that way, but to watch the race, it was amazing. That was one of the best finishes we've seen. Yeah, the Fords have had a ton of speed. That is what I'm looking at a lot this week is Stewart Haas, so Kevin Harvick. I talked about Eric Almirola a little bit. I think he can get out front and lead early on. There's a lot of scenarios that can go on, and this is another thing that's very important when core building that I want to talk about a lot too is building in that zone and kind of going like Harvick, Almirola. Almirola can get out front and lead, but because of the way this is set up, Kurt Busch is right there as well. I think Kurt Busch can get out and lead laps. Ryan Blaney, I think, can get out and dominate laps. So you can kind of build your cores around. Maybe instead of building 2 or 3 cores, I'll drop it, like I said, to 3 drivers and build 3 cores. A few less lineups per core, but I want to build them around scenarios because of the COVID thing with the no practice and the way qualifying has been. You can go and build a lineup around Almirola being a dominator. You can go build a lineup around Blaney being a dominator. You can go build a lineup core around Kurt Busch. I wouldn't probably, just because looking at the fantasy matrix, I'll slide across here again. They're starting 1, 2, 3. I don't think they're going to finish 1, 2, 3. I think Harvick's going to be up there. Hamlin's been red hot. Martin Truex Jr. is one of my favorite here. Brad Keselowski as well. If you're playing and planning on Eric Almirola being a dominator and kind of finishing that top 3, I probably wouldn't. Not saying don't mix them together, but if you're building a core of 3, I wouldn't mix those 3 together. I don't think the 3 of them are going to lead, say, 80 plus each, 60 plus each. I don't think you're going to see those 3 drivers lead 40 plus. I think one of them is going to get out front and lead early. We got a competition caution at lap 20. Either they're going to stay out front and keep leading laps, or things are going to start changing slowly. Harvick's starting 5th, and I've got him as my top dominator, so I think he can probably by lap 40 to 60. Right now I've got Almirola for 60 laps. I think Harvick's going to get up there. So that's kind of one thing to look at when multi-entering. Newman or Nemechek. Okay, so that's a tough one down in that value range. Looking at, I'll just use, for instance, the DK Fantasy Matrix, and we'll look at it that way. So I don't see either of them really getting any fast laps or laps led, so we can just look strictly at this. Looking at Newman, and I think I have some notes here that I want to look at on him. In the 7 races on 1.5-mile tracks since the return, he has 5 finishes of 17th or better, 3 times 15th or better. To hit value, he pretty much needs to finish where he starts. So we're at 15th, so I'm going to come down and look at 15th for him. That is 29 points. We need that 30 points. So 14th, 15th we need from him. That's kind of that 5x floor. I think he's got top 10 upside. He showed us that. If we go look at him here, he's 18th in the model, 15th, 11th, 18th in his last 3 races here at Texas. He's got 1 top 10 here in the last 10. So that top 10 is kind of like his ceiling is where I've got him. So if we go back to the matrix and look at that, that is kind of around 40 points. So there's a little bit of upside there. Nemechek, we'll go back and look at here. He finished 21st here last year. So he does have some track history. He had a good finish. He would be the one that we're looking at for place differential points. So if he finishes kind of around that 15th place, you can tell the upside is pretty darn big on him. For 30, you're looking at that 21st where he finished last year, kind of as that 5x floor. So it's very close. Go look at recent form here. We're looking at John Hunter Nemechek. He's 36. He got in a crash there at Kentucky, but before that he had finished 19th at Homestead, and we're looking at just mile and a half tracks. 23rd at Atlanta, 13th at Charlotte, 16th at Charlotte, 35th had some troubles at Darlington too, and he had a top 10 at Darlington 1 to return to racing, so that was really good to see there. So I would say he's got top 10 upside. So I like the floor for both. Long-winded answer here. I like the floor for both, but I just wanted to kind of explain the process and how I look at this. There is more upside with Nemechek just because of the place differential. We've seen him put up top 10s to 15s at mile and a half tracks, and if we go and look at that, that's 52 points. 42 to 52 points for him at that. So that's pretty big upside there. We're looking at 7 to 8x upside. We don't have that with Newman. I like the safety with Newman. He's got a lot of experience. Like I said, he's kind of right around that 15th, and I think that's probably where he ends up finishing, is giving you that 5x, 5.5x at the most, maybe 6 with a really good day if things go right. But if you're playing cash games, I'd probably go Newman. GPP, I love Nemechek there. Love the pivot to Nemechek. Okay, so a couple other guys that stood out to me when I was doing this up. Christopher Bell. We've seen him, because of this qualifying order and because he's in that 95 car, they're lower in owner points. He's been starting outside the top 30 like crazy since the return. Well, his price crept up into that 10K range. He was the most expensive driver for a couple weeks. Very hard to roster him there. You kind of need that max finish out of him, that career best finish on some of these tracks for him to, to hit that, even the floor. Took a monumental effort. Well, now he's down to 9,100. Stands out a lot more to me. And some of the things I had here, I put together some stats last night. He has an average finish of 18.2 when starting outside the top 20 in the 2020 season. So that's good. Since the return of racing with the new qualifying rules, he started outside the top 30 in 7 of the 13 races with an average finish of 13.9. And in the 7 mile and a half races since the return, he has 3 top 10s and an average finish of 14.1. To get 5x, and we'll jump over and I'll just show you this on the matrix. To hit 5x, we need about 45 points from him at that $9,000 price tag. That is a 16th place finish with no laps led or fast laps. I think there's possibility he maybe gets a couple of each of those. Not really a factor. I'm not going to worry about it. But a 16th place finish is definitely in line with all of those stats when he's starting outside the top 20, outside the top 30. Looking at the mile and a halves, he's got upside of a top 10, which puts you at 57 points at that 60. So you're almost getting into like 6-7x upside with him because his price has dropped to 9,100. So I'm definitely looking at Bell. He stands out. Like talked about Almirola and Harvick, probably going to be two of my 3 or 2 of my 4 in terms of core are going to be Harvick and Almirola together. And kind of looking at it from the scenario that Eric Almirola is going to get out front and lead early, finish top 5, I think is fine for him at 8,100, 40 points. 40 points to get that 5x at 60 laps. We only need a 10. So if he finishes top 5 and we get 50 points, I'm ecstatic. I think Harvick can then get up front, like I've talked about quite a bit since the return of racing. I think he's going to be the lap leader at the end of the race. There's a chance that he's going to win or finish on the podium 1, 2, or 3. I think both of them together can work really well at less than 20K of your salary with huge upside together, putting them together. Talked about Bell. Blaney, I like Almirola a little more to lead early. That's why Blaney's a GPP. I labeled him as a blue secondary, Almirola as a core. He's led 18 plus laps in 6 of the last 8 races. 60 plus in 3 of those. Talking about Blaney here, has finished 8th or better here at Texas in 4 of the last 5. Mechanical failure in the other race, and his last 6 races this season since the return on the mile and a half tracks: 6th at Kentucky, 3rd at Homestead, 4th at Atlanta, 3rd at Charlotte, 3rd at Charlotte. Had some issues early on at those 2 Darlington races, but they figured it out fast. That is 5 straight finishes of 6th or better on the mile and a half. I do Blaney because he's starting second. He does need those laps led, because to hit 45 points, even with just 34 laps, which I've kind of got programmed in there now, we need right around a 7th place, or sorry, a 5th place, a top 5 from Blaney. So that's a little bit risky. So that's kind of why I got him as a GPP. If you don't think Almirola is going to lead 60 laps, you think maybe Blaney's going to lead 60 laps. Blaney at 60 laps led now only needs a 8th place finish to hit that 5x threshold. So that is another way you really need to dip into this matrix if you haven't yet. These are the decisions that changing these numbers around a little bit just to kind of play out these scenarios really helps me narrow down my core and my lineup builds. Oh, Danica, for sure. She looks like she's probably kicked his ass a few times. Me? Yeah, Danica probably beat me up too. Oh, yeah, you mean you think Danica could beat him? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, she looks scrappy for sure. So going back to the sheet here, another core driver for me today. I didn't get any. Just answering a question here in chat. Is Tyler Reddick. He's 20th in the model, in the initial model, as you can see. Now, a lot of that is he doesn't have track history here. So that's another thing if you're playing with the model that you can do. And I explained this in the golf video as well. If you watched our golf show earlier this week, Dane and I. By the way, Dane, I know you're in a golf tournament. You missed the live show today. I don't know if you're watching, but if you are, I hope you're kicking ass out there. Hope you're taking everyone's money, clearing their pockets. But what we talked about during that show is, or what I talked about with the sheet, was some guys don't have data in some of these, like where I've got these numbers in the model here, as you can see up top. If a guy doesn't have track history, he gets dinged automatically to 40. It's a little worse than PGA, actually, having none. So if you kind of want to see where a guy like Tyler Reddick fits in the model, not looking at track history, which he does not have any, we can clear that out. Let's go add more onto form, qualifying, track type history, and form. So we got our back to our 100 here in our values. Got to find him here. He jumps to 13th in the model, so you can kind of see how that plays out as well in terms of track history, because he's got any number in this track history section here in the green is going to hurt him because he doesn't have any. Same with any of the rookies. Same with Kenseth over the last 2 races because he hasn't raced here at this track. So another thing to look at. A lot of guys are going to have track history and form, but when you start looking at the Xfinity and the truck sheet, and I wanted to do a video for these this weekend, but the deck building definitely came first, is a lot of guys in those series are coming in as rookies. They don't have track history, but because we've got a sample size of track type history for this season and form, which is looking at this season, I can maybe even take out track history on those sheets is especially important, and build just a track type history and form model, or with qualifying or qualifying inverse and just removing track history completely. Gives you a whole new model and a whole new set of rankings. So don't just go with the model that is set there originally on the sheet. Definitely play around, and if you got questions on how to play around with the model, this is why we have the chats. This is why on RotoPros we have the Slack chat, on DFSR, on Patreon. This is why we have, on my Twitter, you can hit me up and DM. All these places to hit me up. Definitely take advantage of that, because there's so much in these sheets. It can be overwhelming. I've been told that many times, that it can be very, very overwhelming, all the numbers and colors and stuff. Hit me up. One-on-one coaching. This is what I'm here for. Hit me up in chat. I'm literally do this. This is my job. This is my career. 12 to 16 hours a day I'm on the computer. I'm in 3 or 4 different chats all day long. I got notifications on my phone when I'm not in front of the computer. So I take this stuff seriously. I take my members, I take all of our members seriously, and just want to help people. That's my real goal. I'm not going to claim to be an expert. I'm not going to claim to be a pro. If I was a pro, a lot of pros out there, they're not doing content because it takes that much time. I put more time into my content and helping people than I do actually playing. That comes first to me, is my content, and then I play. And that's why I only play single entry cash games. One lineup in cash. I'll run that in a single entry, and then if I have time, which with NASCAR and PGA I do because they are weekly sports, I can jump into 3 max. When practice comes back for NASCAR, jump back into 20 max, 50. Not 50 max, but 50 lineups kind of get up in there because I like building multi-entry. But yeah, I'm never going to complain, or I'm never going to tell anyone that I'm an expert or I'm a pro or I'm better than you. I'm not. We're all the same, and we're all in this together. I just want to create it kind of like a family, and that's what Rotopro's DFSR and my Patreon. And just kind of, everyone help each other out. Everyone's got ideas, and I respect everyone's opinion, and just here to share opinions. I have the time to put together these cheat sheets, so that's why I do this, is because they've helped me tremendously over the years. I've been doing this for about 5.5, 6 years. And a lot of people have told me that they help them. Give me ideas. If there's things that you want added, I've added so much to the NASCAR and PGA sheets. It's a slow process in adding stuff, because right now I think me and my daughter added up last night. I've got 19 different sheets that I whether it be NASCAR, all 3 series, PGA, we've got four days of showdowns plus the full tournament, soccer, MLS now, EPL. All these sports, I'm up to like 19 sheets. So the changes definitely come slow. But if you give me all your suggestions, I have lists of things I want to add to every single sheet. And when I find any kind of free time, whether it be a half an hour, I'm plugging away trying to add this stuff that is going to help you. And I can't add stuff that helps you if you don't tell me what you need. So whether it be a private message, whether it be in this chat during the show, hit me up, tell me what you want, and I will definitely put it on the list. Before I go, we talked about some FanDuel, we talked about some DraftKings, talked about some cores. If you have any other drivers you want to know about, Danica's significant strikes, she'd probably reach around 100, and probably, we're looking at a title fight, so 5 rounds. I'd give her like 100 plus significant strikes. Probably not any takedowns. I don't really see her as a takedown, but I think she'd stand there and chuck them at him for sure. Also want to look at Prize Picks. Been with them here now for a little over a month. Been playing over on their site. So I kind of want to give you a few plays that I'm looking at over there, kind of show you how it works a little bit. So you're pretty much picking 2, 3, or 4 drivers. Now, this is a cross-sport platform, so they're covering PGA, NASCAR, soccer, LOL, Call of Duty. It'll be basketball, MLB, hockey, MMA, KBO, pretty much everything. You can, of those 4 picks, you can cross sports. You can have 4 different sports. You can have all the same sport. Doesn't matter. And all you're doing is betting over/under on fantasy points that they set. So they set a line of fantasy points, and you're just betting an over/under. I love it for NASCAR personally, is my favorite, simply because that over/under is just finishing position. The only way a driver gets points is finishing position. So that's literally all you're doing is betting over/under and finishing position. So what you do, and I'm just going to give you 2 here right now. I like Kyle Busch under. Obviously, we talked about his struggles. They're probably the biggest team that has struggled in terms of not having practice. His line is set at 35 points. 35 points he needs to be top 5, 5th or better. If 35 points would be a push, anything outside that, or 6th would be a push at 35 points. 7th or worse is a win if you bet the under on him. So that would be one that stands out to me today. And then scrolling down, I like Eric Almirola at 31.5 points. I like the over there. So 31.5, the over would make that a 9th or better. So if he finishes inside the top 10, not 10th, obviously 9th or better, he would win the over. So you can choose 2, 3, or 4. And I normally play the 2. So I compare this to like a cash game in terms of DraftKings and FanDuel. So actually, I'm going to bring the screen back over here so I can show you. I'm going to go back to this screen. So this is your main screen. You got your sports here at the top, and I'm not sure, just because I've compressed this, so it's not gonna work. So I will go back to the sheet here, just because the view is terrible. So you pick your 2 drivers. Once you do that, you hit go, and you go to the next screen, and this is where you pick your over or under and how much you're going to bet. So there's a power play and a flex play. Power play just means you pick 2 picks, you get both those picks right, you get 2.5 times your money. So on a $10 bet, you get $25. If you do a flex play, you can get one of those wrong. So if Kyle Busch all of a sudden wins the race, but you get you get your other pick right, you get, where is it here? 2 times your money for if both win. So you get a little bit less if both win, but if only one wins, you're still getting half back. So if you're 1 for 2, you're going to get $5 back on a $10 bet. So it's just like a little safer. And then if you get up into, I'm going to go back and add 2 more drivers here. So I'm going to go back and add 2 more drivers here. So you pick your 2 drivers. Once you do that, you hit go, and you go to the next screen. So this is your main screen. You got your sports here at the top, and I'm not sure, just because I've compressed this, so it's not gonna work. So I will go back to the two golfers. Just to get to the 4 picks. If you do a 4-pick power play, you are looking at 10x your money, and 3 picks is 5x. That's not the flex play. The flex play is obviously the safer option. You can go that way as well. So that's just, if you want to sign up, I'm going to have the link below, and joining that all the way up until the end of July. I'm going to be having a $50 free roll next month for PGA as well as NASCAR, and everyone that joins up to my Patreon will be entered into that. So if you join, Prize Picks. If you join up for the Prize Picks through my link or just using promo code Jaeger to make your first deposit, you will get into that $50 free roll that I will have. So, go back, check a couple questions here before we go. Yeah, hockey back is going to be awesome. Like these next couple weeks is just, there's never ever been this many sports all running at the same time. I know NHL and NBA is going to get greatly reduced because of, the play-in and the playoffs and stuff like that. Like NHL starting out with their 16 teams that will be in a play-in situation, and then you've got the top 4 teams in each conference will have a round robin to determine the 1 seed, and then they'll set that 1 through 4 seed, and then from there, whoever wins those other series out of this other 16 teams will play those top 4 seeds in the actual playoffs. NBA just jumping right into the playoffs. So, as we get in, the slates are going to get smaller, but those first couple weeks, and then NFL comes back as well. Not really sure what's going to happen there. There's, a lot of concern, a lot of talk about that with the whole COVID thing. So we'll have to wait and see there. But overall, it's going to be an insane month of August. And it starts next week, actually. So I'll just count that as August. I'm just going to say August starts next week, and I'm never going to leave the house or in front of the computer. So if you have no other questions, I'm going to go start building my 3 Max. I've built my 1 lineup now. Like I said, if you have any questions, hit me up. RotoPros chat, DFSR chat, Patreon Slack chat. You can hit me up in the video comments below here or on Twitter at Jaeger_bombs9. We've got free trials on DFSR and RotoPros right now, so go over and check those out. PJ Optimizer is now up. That is live. I do a live show with Doug. We do a podcast, actually, that has turned into a live show as well over on Sportscaster. We do that every Tuesday morning, so make sure to search for DFSR or Jaeger Bombs over on Sportscaster. You can check us out there. So much going on. Oh, we got a question. Ty Dillon or Nemechek? Nemechek all day for me. I will have no Ty Dillon myself. He just hasn't shown anything, and really when we start looking at the fantasy matrix, Ty Dillon at 6,700 to get that 5x needs 33.5, so 34 points, a 20th place finish. He needs a top 20. I do not see that from him. So I like Austin Dillon just above him, or like I said, John Hunter Nemechek or Ryan Newman. Newman a little bit more of a cash game play. The upside isn't as much, but Nemechek's upside, I believe he's got 10th to 15th place upside, and he's kind of good at, we need 30 points from him, and that is a 21st place finish. So for a floor, we only need 21st, and he's got top 10 to 15 upside. He, 7 to 8x upside, where Newman doesn't have that, and I don't think Ty Dillon has anywhere near that. Doesn't have anywhere near the floor or upside. So easily John Hunter Nemechek for me, Ellis. Yeah, I like Bell over Ty and Nemechek as well. That's a totally different price range. So, we're starting to talk about completely different lineup constructions if we're talking DraftKings. When we're jumping up into Christopher Bell, even Ty Dillon and Nemechek, there's a $700 difference there as well. So there's a little bit of a difference. But in terms of FanDuel, I think it's a lot closer. That might be what you're talking about. Yeah, Bell's only $9,000 on FanDuel versus Ty Dillon. Well, he's $5,000. So either way, there's a huge price difference between them. I definitely, for the points per dollar value, I like Nemechek, even at he's 6K on both sites. But I do like Bell today for the reasons I explained. He's got top 10 upside. His price has finally dropped, kind of into that where it has been on FanDuel this whole time. But place differential is more important on DraftKings. So seeing that price drop from the mid to low 10K range down to the low 9K range, I absolutely love it. Yeah, I figured you were talking FanDuel. And where finished position is a lot more important over there because place differential is only half a point versus a full point on DK. Same with the fast laps and stuff like that, the dominator points. So finished position and actual laps completed is a stat over on FanDuel. So just kind of finishing on that lead lap it's only going to get you that one extra point, but guys that kind of finish 2 or 3 laps down, something to look at. Guys finishing races when you're looking at your value plays, kind of like that mid-7 and down range, or sorry, on FanDuel would be like your mid 8K range and down when you're really breaking down those guys side by side. That's something I really want to look into in the future. The problem with FanDuel is there isn't an easy download Excel link where we can go and get all the DraftKings points. So I'm not able to build the same kind of databases as I can with DraftKings. So that's something I'm really looking at in the future in terms of the fantasy matrix and stuff like that. Even, like historic salaries and stuff is kind of hard to get to. I'm going to have to go back and load all my cheat sheets, which I do have, and load all those salaries in there. So there is much more to come in terms of the NASCAR tools and salary tracking and hitting, kind of like I did with PGA, where I'm showing finished position, DraftKings points, salary that week, as well as the DK value that they return, like the 5x, 6x, 10x, whatever. I want to do that with FanDuel or with NASCAR as well, just so that you can see on a consistency basis who is returning points per dollar value, and just kind of see where guys' salary has ranged race by race. We can look at salary just specifically to 1.5-mile tracks, or salary just on Daytona and Talladega and stuff like that. So that's what I'm looking at adding. Yes, McDowell, that is one guy I actually did not mention yet. He is a core value play for me at 6,600. I don't think I wrote any notes down on him. Of course I didn't. I had lots of thoughts on him last night, but ended up just going to bed. He started 34th, which I like, and just kind of looking at his 7 races is what stood out to me. He is ranked 22nd best average finish, but that's fine because the price is way down there, right? He's got an average finish of 21 in the 7 races on 1.5-mile tracks since the return of racing. He's gone 24th, 15th, 24th, 25th, 19th, 17th, and 23rd in those races. So kind of his floor is 25th place with upside of 15th is what we're looking at from him. So looking at that range on the fantasy matrix here, we're looking at 38 to 48 points. At that price, 6,600, I believe, do quick math, 33 points. So really, we are only looking at like a 22nd, 23rd place finish from him to hit that floor. Well, he's shown us on 1.5 that his floor is a 25th. 25th? Yeah, 25th place finish. So that's close. That's kind of a little bit undervalued as his floor, but he's shown us his upside of 15th. So we're looking at 48 points there. Upwards of 50. I think he can get up there in the right scenario. That's kind of his high end, but still the floor is definitely there for him. So it feels safe enough at 6,600. Kind of like a Newman, but even more upside than Newman, because Newman's starting 15th kind of really limits his overall upside there. Even a win only gives him 60 points. That's close to 10x, so I'm not going to say that just 60 points, but I don't see that out of him by any means. I'm looking at a 10th from Newman as kind of his high end. Galding in the 27, yeah, definitely could be. I'm not going down into that range. That's why I didn't highlight it. That's why I haven't really talked about those punt guys. Nemechek, Buescher, and Preece are the lowest I'm going today for my value plays. And then, like I said, all the other guys that I've kind of mentioned above a little bit. That kind of covers everyone. Oh, Matty D. I haven't talked about him. He hasn't been great here. He hasn't finished better than 14th. I know that's a wide range of equipment. But looking, he is 13th in average finish, 14.0 average finish in 7 races since the return on 1.5 miles. That is 1 top 5, and he's gone 3rd, 14th, 25th. So variance. There's definitely some variance in his finishes on the 1.5-mile tracks. The fact that he is starting 11th kind of scares me a little bit. That kind of caps his upside, because 5th is kind of where I got him as maybe his maximum upside. That only gives him 45 points. That is just above 5x. We're looking at about 6x is kind of like a third. That's if he doesn't lead or have any fast laps. So I'm definitely liking other drivers more. Like I said, Blaney was one of them. Almirola, William Byron, I even like starting 18th as well. I think he's got top 10 upside. He can hit better value return for you in the right scenario versus DeBenedetto. Kind of needs absolutely everything to go right for him today and finish top 5, top 3, even lead some laps. Custer, yeah, I did talk about it. I don't want to be. I think his ownership's going to be up there because he's coming off that win last week. But starting 19th, I definitely like. I'm not expecting a top 5. I'm not even really expecting a top 10 from him. We need like 35 points. That's a 14th place finish from him. I definitely like that. I think it's a safe play. If you want to go, like we talked about, Stewart-Haas being a team that one of them's fast. They all are. Even Boyer's been pretty good lately. But like Harvick and Almirola have had fast cars. Custer won last week. There's a lot of variance with Custer. The price is starting to come up, of course. But again, we only need a 14th place finish to hit that 5x floor. I think we can even see that in winning lineups with one or two guys hitting 5x if the other ones outperform, right? Like you see Harvick get up there. If he gets 83 points, he's up in that 8. He can put up 10x if he leads even more laps. So that kind of makes up for the 5x floor for some of these value guys. So I'm definitely in line with Custer, getting him in there today. So yeah, Eric Jones going to be chalk, starting 23rd. Yeah, up there. That kind of helps, I think, with maybe lowering a little bit on Almirola and Blaney, especially seeing Harvick start in 5th. A lot of people probably think he's going to be top dominator, so that takes away from Blaney and Almirola. You got Eric Jones right in between those two guys, starting 23rd. He's got 5th upside. So I nothing wrong with that whatsoever. The upside is definitely there. He doesn't even need to lead laps, and he can put up the same points as Blaney does, finishing 2nd, and Jones only needs a 5th there. So definitely like that. I'm personally not on Kenseth, starting 22nd. That's just going to go over and look at him here since the return. Yeah, he's averaging 22nd. He 25th in each of the last two, 15th, 23rd, 27th. It just hasn't been there. He looked awesome coming back, and I was kind of excited there in that 10th place finish at Darlington out of the break, but I'm not in it at all. I love Harvick myself. He's been the best dominator here. He's won 3 of the last 5 here. He's got top 10s in 11 straight. He's been hot since the return. He's been the best driver in terms of the last 7 races on this track type, the 1.5 miles. As you can see, he's 2 wins. He's got more top 10s than Denny Hamlin. Hamlin's got more top 5s, but what gets me is Harvick has led the most laps. He's led double than anyone else. Not quite. Truex is up there, 225. He's been hot in terms of current form. He's got the most wins. He's got the most laps led. So everything I'm looking at points to Harvick, getting up front and leading more laps today. They've really figured out this not having any practice and getting the right setups on their car week after week after week. The consistency's there. He is 500 more than Denny Hamlin, who is very similar stats, but in terms, as you can see, Hamlin has not been consistent here at Texas. He's got the upside. So if you're pivoting off Harvick, you're getting $500 price tag. You're getting the same upside as Harvick with the savings, but there's a little more variance to it. But you're probably going to get an ownership discount there just because of the price difference. So definitely that. Custer, Austin Dillon. Custer and Dillon. So we got 14. Dillon's ahead in the model. Dillon's got experience here. He's got top 15s in 4 of his last 5 with 1 top 10 in there. I would say, just going to jump at the fantasy matrix and just... Geez, they got about the same place differential upside as well. I'd lean Dillon. He's 500 cheaper. He's got actually 2 more place differential upside better. He's got experience at the track. Custer's probably going to be lower owned, I think, just because of that. Everything points me to Dillon over Custer there. I just haven't seen anything that makes me think that Kyle's speed is back. I'm just going to bring something up here that just kind of... That's Kurt Busch. I'm going to bring up Kyle Busch over here. Get back on the screen because I know the screen is compressed to get the cheat sheet on there. So I'm going to move that. Oh, there's the golf scores. That sucks for my core to start. Playing real hard today, by the way. So looking at just Kyle Busch this season, we're used to him winning at least once or twice by now. He's got 0 wins. He led 100 laps at Bristol earlier this year. That is the only time he's led 20 or more, and he's only led 10 or more laps twice. There has been nothing but complaining about the car. They get up towards the top 5 at a point in the race, and then they lose it and they drop back and they're just running 10th. Since the return of racing, I love the price. Don't get me wrong. That puts a ton of upside there. If he does figure it out, boom, he can hit huge upside at 9,300 on DraftKings, even 12.4 on FanDuel. So don't get me wrong there. I love the upside. But his average finish since the return is 15th. It's just not there. So GPP for sure. He's probably going to be low owned. Like I said, the price is dropping, and so is the ownership, which is crazy to me for Kyle Busch. So I'll probably try and fit one in just in case, just like I did last week. And I kind of shared that meme of The Office where he's sitting there and he's like, I am prepared to be hurt again. I'm fully prepared to be hurt again. That's how I feel rostering Kyle Busch every week. But at 9,300, only 200 more than Bell. The upside is most definitely there for him to get out front. If he figures it out, he can lead 100 laps here. And at 9,300 can crush his price. So I totally see it. I just don't see it yet. Who wins? Kevin Harvick is my pick to win. I think Keselowski's going to be up there again. I think Blaney can be up there again as well. Those are kind of my three guys. I think the Fords, as you can tell, I'm on the Fords today. That's kind of the way I'm constructing my lineups a little bit. I think Blaney can get up there and lead. Almirola I talked about. I don't think Almirola wins by any means, but I think he's going to lead some laps early and finish top 5. I think Blaney leads some laps, has a chance to win. I think Harvick and Keselowski are going to be there at the end. I hope Kyle Busch is there at the end, and I'll be rooting for your lineups in my one Kyle Busch lineup if he is up there. But I just don't see it yet. I think he would be thrilled with, if he shows the speed, leads a few laps, and even finishes top 5. I think he may not be thrilled, but I think Joe Gibbs himself would be thrilled to at least see that kind of speed coming back from him. I just don't understand. You got Hamlin, who's been super fast since the return, on the same team. Are they not sharing information? These initial setups, that's really what it is they're guessing on the initial setup at the start of the race. Why is Kyle Busch so far off? Why has Christopher Bell been better than Kyle Busch? Well, not overall, but in a lot of races he's been better. Truex has been a little bit up and down, but still better than Busch. Eric Jones has shown the upside that his car has had more speed than Kyle Busch's, but he's had some accidents, stuff like that, mechanical failures, penalties, things like that go wrong for him. But Busch has been almost consistently the worst car on that team. Again, because of consistency. I hate ragging on my favorite driver. This is tough for me. I'm almost shedding a tear right now. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's there. But the upside's definitely there. Is Truex a good play over Denny? I like Truex over Denny. He's higher in my model. He's been more consistent at this track. As you can see here, he hasn't had a win. Career track history, he hasn't had a win looking at it, but he's been more consistent than Hamlin lately. I think that that win here is definitely coming. Today could be the day. Dane, again, I'm picking your driver over mine. Dane, by the way, is a huge Truex fan. I'm Kyle Busch, so it leads to a lot of inside bets. Probably going to have an avatar bet here one of these weeks, but I don't know if I can stomach putting a Truex picture on my profile. I do think Harvick dominates. If you check out the DK Fantasy Matrix on my cheat sheet, I've got him for the most laps led in the race. I'm probably low to what I think, but I wanted to spread it out to kind of show you the drivers that I think are going to lead laps in the race. I think Harvick can easily be a 150-plus guy, be the 100-plus guy, or if it gets spread out and we have, say, 3 drivers lead 50-plus, kind of 3 in that 60 to 80 range type thing, I think he can be one of those drivers. I think he leads the most in the race for sure. I don't see Jimmy top 5. Nope. Just today, I don't really. He's obviously the best driver here at this track. 7 career wins here, and over half of his 33, or just under half of his 33 races have been top 5 finishes here at this track. I just don't see it. I want to go look at Jimmy here quick on this. 14.3 average finish since the return. He has had a top 5. That was at the first Charlotte race, but hasn't had a top 5 since. 11th, 7th, 16th, and 18th. So he's kind of been trending away from those top 5, top 10 finishes. So I'm just not ready to put him back in that top 5 zone yet. So at that $9,000 price tag, if we look at the fantasy matrix for Jimmy here, he's starting 20th. So I don't see top 5, which would be 5x, but we really need 45 points. That gives him a 10th place. So the 5x floor is definitely there, but I see kind of that 8th to 10th as his upside today, which just at 5 to 5.5x isn't enough upside for me with guys around him that I think have more upside. Oh, thanks for reporting that news, Elliott to the rear. I wasn't on him in my 3 lineups anyway. Yeah, I'm pretty sure just from, past, we'll just call it incidents, that Harvick probably isn't going to share any information with Kyle regarding NASCAR in general. That's kind of why Harvick is my wife's favorite driver, is because this goes all the way back to when they both had truck teams. I was a huge Kyle Busch fan, like I always have been, but he still does own his truck team. But at the time, Harvick also owned a truck team, and they were huge rivals in that, and that made them even more rivals in the Cup Series, and didn't really get along. So that's why she became a Harvick fan, just to kind of spite me. So I don't see that information being shared. But I got to take off here. Thanks for everyone who joined. Been about, I don't know, 50, 52 minutes, something like that. It's been awesome. Oh, it's been over an hour. That's awesome. I got to go build my lineups here, get that done. If you have any questions, rotopros.com, dfsr.com, patreon.com/jagerbombs, @jagerbombs_9 on Twitter, or leave your comments below in this video. Thank you so much for joining in, tuning in, interacting with the chat, leaving your comments, likes, subscribing, reading any of my content, listening to me blabber on about pretty much anything when I'm in front of the camera here now. So thanks a lot. Have a great day. Let's go get some green screens. Good luck out there.